Welcome to In the Black, the podcast that shines a light on resilience, transformation, and the power of reinvention. I'm Araceli, and each week my co-host Shannon and I sit down with incredible women who have faced some of life's hardest challenges, from personal setbacks to societal obstacles, and have emerged on the other side stronger, driven, and ready to make a difference.
On In the Black, we celebrate these stories of strength and success, diving deep into the journeys of women who turned pain into purpose, adversity into action, and now dedicate themselves to making the world a better place in their own way. They're here to inspire, share hard-earned wisdom, and remind us all, no matter how dark things may seem, life is cyclical and dawn is coming. So whether you're looking for inspiration, motivation, or just a reminder that change is always possible, this is the podcast for you. Welcome to In the Black.
Welcome to In the Black podcast, where we dive deep into the real, raw, and resilient stories that shape extraordinary lives. Today's guest is the definition of a survivor, a woman who has faced bullying, addiction, loss, betrayal, trauma, and even legal battles, and somehow turned that into purpose. She has walked through fire, from the torment of her childhood to becoming an alcoholic, to navigating the darkest days of her father's illness while raising a newborn, all while being robbed of support by the people closest to her. After enduring heartbreak, manipulation, relapse, and terrifying legal threats, she didn't just survive, she transformed. Now she's on to doing amazing things, which she will talk about today on the podcast. So please welcome a true warrior, a healer, a mother, and a guide for so many, Jasmine Bootle. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for introducing me.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today. If you don't mind, just tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and where you're at.
So, initially, I was doing a holistic healing business, but because of where I live, it's very lots of they call the opioid epidemic of the area of Ontario that we live in. When I was doing the holistic healing, I found that a lot of people, because I had been an alcoholic myself, would open up to me and be wanting help in that way for sobriety. But I can help you with so many things, but I'm not a doctor, so a lot of those things like Suboxone, I can't write them a prescription for that. It's a harm reduction, pretty much life-saving kind of drug for somebody who's addicted to opiates. I would say harm reduction medication. I can't prescribe that to them. Now I'll work with a group of women that are trying to do a mural for everybody who's lost a child for overdose. I do a podcast that is about addiction and people's success stories and trying to find newer ways of finding sobriety, because one size doesn't fit all. And in our community and most communities, they only tell you very few types of ways to find sobriety. So my goal is to find everybody a type of way to get sober that fits them so they can feel comfortable. They don't feel labeled or stigma, because like in a lot of the times in meetings, they make you say, I'm an alcoholic. That's labeling yourself. That's negative. There's lots of other programs if you feel like you don't want that kind of label on yourself that will help you. There's also medications as well that are FDA approved, and with the other like addictions, it's the same thing. And even the stigma of going to a methadone clinic, they don't just treat people with opioid addiction, they treat all addictions. They also have social workers for people that need resources or help with paperwork and stuff like that. And they have counselors. So it's not, and the people that walk in there are not what you think. They look just like you. A lot of business people, it's not what you expect. So I want to take the stigma away by explaining that it's actually just like going to a regular doctor's office, to be quite honest with you. And they're there to help. I could only help so much with the holistic side of it. So I tried to dive deeper so that I could actually help these people, because I'd been through it myself. I also have a TV show that comes out today that is about addiction awareness, and I was in a documentary a couple weeks ago about addiction, and I was in a book for a case study about addiction as well. This all happened in like a 2 month span. So that's why I'm explaining this, because when I initially applied to talk to these ladies, I was still doing the holistic healing business. So it was just all really quick. So yeah.
How did you get reached out to doing the show and all of the new endeavors that you
People found me. So I was reached out to about doing a TV show and a documentary in the same email from Rogers, is like the biggest telecommunications company in Canada. And I was reached out to by one of the people to do this. And it was, I think, because of the podcast that I do, and because the show is named the same thing as the podcast. I think that he had seen what I was doing and wanted me to bring that to our city, because I don't just use local people in the videos. I also don't just do one type of video. Like, there'll be somebody talking about losing their child, then the next one somebody talking about a medication that helps you stop drinking that nobody's talking about, but it's FDA approved, and then it will be somebody who lost their mom, or and then somebody who's overcome addiction themselves and how they did it, and or clinicians will come on and talk about newer ways that people can find sobriety that is less stigmatic and labeling, like I said, and talk about how to control their dopamine and things like that. So, yeah, I think he just reached out to me because I do a lot of, like, I make it full circle. I don't just do like one type of interview. And I think that's what he wanted me to bring, that aspect, because his documentary is already about the opiate issue with all the locals. So he liked that I was talking to people from Australia, from the UK, from the US, and everybody's still having addiction problems. And we're all interconnected in a way, So it kind of brings like understanding from all over the place, right? And then for the book, somebody on Facebook reached out to me because somebody that I had done an interview with knew like a situation that had happened to me, and knew that the guy was doing a study on that specific thing, and told him about it, and he reached out to me through that. That's how that all happened.
Yeah, that's awesome. You have been through so much, being bullied in school, addiction, trauma, betrayal. Can you take us back to one of the early moments where you first felt like the world was against you?
Actually thought about this oddly today because I was talking to my daughter. You know, when you win awards in school at the end of the year? Well, I think I was in grade 4 or 5, and I wanted to win the volunteer award. And I volunteered for everything you possibly could. Like, nobody, I had to win compared to everybody else because of how much work I'd put in. But there was this girl who the teachers just always really liked, and liked her more than me. And so she got the award even though I deserved the award. And that's when I realized that the world's not fair. And that's when I started to think a little more negatively about things in life, and kind of opened my eyes to fairness and inequality and stuff like that. So that's when it started. I also was a figure skater, and getting last place on my first figure skating competition was one that also kind of kicked me in the butt too. So yeah, pretty young, I'd say. Yeah, that I realized all this kind of stuff.
how did that lead to bullying?
I was always bullied because my mom created a lot of anxiety in me, because if we went somewhere, she watched everything I said and did, and if I did something she didn't like, she'd get mad at me. So I just was scared of everything, and I wouldn't talk to anybody. So, and I'm very small, so I was an easy target because I was extremely shy and really small. So everybody would pick on me, and also because my mom didn't want me to get lice, so she put pure tea tree on my hair, which made me smell. So I was the smelly kid. because of the tea tree oil, and I was shy and quiet, so that really didn't help. But yeah, I was the smelly kid because my mom didn't want me to get lice. That's where it started from, so pretty young. And then it just progressed into more negative, more aggressive natured as I got into the older grades, right?
After all the pain, how did you find the strength to get sober the first time? And what kept you committed to speaking at AA?
So, what got me sober the first time was an incident I had with the boyfriend I had at the time because I was engaged to him. We had a big altercation, and it was all due to me drinking, and it was pretty negative. And a lot of it was from my end. I had done something negative, and he was very angry about it and said that if I didn't quit drinking, then he was going to leave me. And I'm not saying I got sober because of him. It was because I knew what I did was not the type of person I truly am. And it hit me that I was really that different with alcohol, and him pushing me that way, I kind of needed a push. I already in my heart knew I had a problem. I just needed somebody to push me. So that big fight pushed me into going into AA. And then with the speaking aspect, everybody wanted me to speak all the time because I was a lot younger. So they just wanted to hear the perspective of somebody that was younger trying to stay sober, because I worked in restaurants and bars and stuff. So they always wanted to hear how I was able to stay sober and do that kind of stuff, and kind of my backstory as well. So, because I did hit an 18 wheeler when I was drunk. So there's a few stories there. So they kind of liked those as well. I think they found me entertaining on top of that. So, you know, I was asked to speak. So that's how that happened.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful. I think when you are seen as an example, a lot of times it is a bit higher accountability in those groups. And so that's awesome. Now, you had mentioned in your application about your father's illness and a betrayal by your aunt. That had to have been devastating. Can you talk a little bit about that, how you coped emotionally? And you were also caring for a newborn while you were managing hospital life with your dad. So, can you just talk a little bit about that period of your life?
That period of my life, I'm going through a stressful period in my own life right now. And so I compare it to the same thing. And it's like, when really bad things happen to you, they just happen so fast that you really don't have any control over it. So you're in fight and flight all the time. So you don't have time to stop and be depressed because you're just in adrenaline mode all the time because you never know what the outcome's going to be. And as for my aunt, she still hasn't spoken to me. I've been excommunicated from the family after the day after my dad's celebration of life. Never spoken to her again. Um, from doing my readings, because I really needed an answer about if my dad actually said yes, give the pension to nobody, or it was my aunt, and he said it was my aunt. And I already kind of knew that because his lawyer said he didn't have the paperwork yet, but when he was doing his will, he had mentioned that he wanted to leave me and my daughter the pension. And my aunt dislikes me, so he was incontinent, but she wouldn't admit it. She said he was when he signed the paperwork, even though he died like a week or so later because of brain, like really severe brain cancer. So it was a very negative time because my aunt took $122,000 that my dad worked his whole life for and threw it in the garbage just because she doesn't like me, and left me with all the expenses that had to do with him, and took half of everything, and never talked to me again, and left me with just to be with me and my child. And so she betrayed me pretty badly. And I don't know how I would feel if I actually ever seen her again, because I don't know how to even feel about it now. I don't have words for it. It's just one of those things that because I also had to sell my childhood home because that money would have been made it so that I could have fixed it up and stayed there, which is what also my dad wanted. Having to leave my childhood home and all of that kind of stuff. That's what led me to using opiates, actually. I had all that happen, and we had moved into an apartment, and somebody gave me a Percocet when I had period cramps, and it took all of that was in my head and just made it go away. And that I didn't want to stop because it was just always so overwhelming for me. And having a child and stuff like that, I didn't want my daughter to always think mommy's depressed all the time, right? So I would take Percocets to be calm and not feeling like numbing myself, I guess you would say.
You were told you caused a death in a car accident, an unimaginable accusation. How did you mentally and spiritually survive that period while staying sober and raising your kids? Because at that point, you had already gotten sober. Is that correct?
That's the story, that's the case study actually in the book, is about that whole car accident thing. And what I did was I started that holistic healing business because I figured if I could try to help fix other people, maybe I could fix myself. Instead of laying in bed all the time, being depressed about it, being worrying about going to jail, I turned it into focusing on something else so that it was kind of like an addiction where you're numbing yourself because you're not thinking about it, because I was just throwing myself into working all the time. But it kind of made it so I wasn't as present with my children, which really got to me too because I was always so focused on work that I slowly pulled back on it and slowly pulled back on it. And then started going in a different direction because I found a lot of people that were looking for help that I couldn't necessarily provide in good conscience. So I started trying to get involved with that and being able to guide them to the proper places. And I have resource programs where I make like brochures where for people that maybe don't have a phone or something, and they can figure out where there's anything in the community that they could possibly need food to getting their nails cut, like anything. I decided to do that because I just, like I said, in good conscience couldn't really help the people that in the way they needed it, right?
Wow, acknowledging that can sometimes be a huge challenge in and of itself. So it's beautiful that you were able to say, okay, this is not necessarily where I'm at the moment. So that's really beautiful. How do you think your own journey influences the way you help others today? And what do you think makes your approach different or special?
My approach is I'm very non-judgmental. So like I can talk to anybody about anything. And that is always what people say when they talk to me, is that my approach to talking to people is very calm, very nonchalant, and like if it's something I don't agree with, I just won't say anything. If it's something that I totally agree with, I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I think that like I agree with you." But if I don't agree with you, I won't say it. I just will allow, because if I'm doing an interview and they're saying their story and it's something that I don't agree with, that's not my story or my life, so I'm not going to interject. But per se that they said that this they got sober this way and it was something really interesting, I might be like, "Oh my gosh, that's really interesting," and show like excitement towards it. But like I said, I think it's just my approach to how I talk to people. And because I was a server and I talked to so many people for so many years, that I just have that. And before that, I worked as tech support for Bell. So I just talk, 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 talk. So yeah, I'm very easy to talk to. I think that's the only other thing that sets me a bit apart. And I don't have an ego like a lot of people in recovery podcasts. They talk like they're a little bit above the person who's telling the story, and that isn't the way that I do that. I don't do that. And I think that's what sets me a little bit different as well, is that I'm on your level and I know it. you know.
So, for listeners who may be trapped in addiction, abuse, or hopeless situations, what practical advice, first steps, or mindset shifts would you share that helped you find the light in the darkness?
I would say go to your physician and explain your situation as hard as it is and have them maybe point you to a clinic where they will help you more. So sometimes people don't always know that like they know they're struggling, but they don't understand it, right? So if you go to a clinic, they'll give you a mental health assessment, which then helps you understand yourself so much. So that in itself is why I would suggest going to a methadone clinic, because it's not just for opiate addiction, it's for every addiction. And like I said, they'll give you that health assessment.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times is that feeling of isolation is what keeps people stuck. And so knowing that they're not alone is so powerful. And so by saying that, yeah, it does give you a community when you realize that you're not alone and that it's not just a particular demographic necessarily, but that there are people who struggle no matter what color their skin, no matter what their religion, no matter what their financial status. There are people who struggle with addiction on a regular basis and they need help. And I know my situation was a little bit different, but my little sister was an addict. And so I went to a lot of NA meetings over the years with her. And it is, it's amazing what happens when you find a community who understands your challenges. And so, real quick, can you just talk about how community influenced your healing process and how important that could be to other people?
It gives me strength to have a community of people that I know that are on the similar journeys. I'm not going to say anybody's journey is the same, but they all have similar, they're sober basically, and they want to stay sober. And having that kind of community makes you, A, you don't feel alone, and B, you don't feel as labeled or as much stigma when you're in a community of people that are all addicts, because you're all like, we're all addicts. And so we don't feel that label because we are all the same and we can all relate to each other through stories. And even if we're not talking about addiction, somehow we all just get along. It's like there's that barrier's gone because we have that we don't have that fear of being judged, I guess, because we have that community. And that's what I've definitely felt lots of times. And strength, because a lot of people have been in a place way worse than you, and hearing their stories on what they have to say gives you strength when you're feeling like you can't take it anymore, you know? You think back to what somebody in your community said and maybe even reach out to them and see like if they're available to talk, because their strength and resilience has humbled you and makes you feel like you can get through anything if they can. And sometimes talking to them just brings that back. I know a woman that every time I'm struggling and I post something, she always says something really, really nice, but yet kind of kicks you in the butt, like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of advice. And I know how much she's been through. So I'm always like, you've been through so much and you're trying to help me. Like, thank you so much. And that is the best part of community, is that right there.
That's beautiful. So, where can our audience find you? Follow your journey or work with you if they're ready to begin their own healing, if you're still doing that kind of work? Or could you give us a little bit about where can they find your book, your documentary, and your show?
So basically, with my business, it would be more so if you're looking for a way to get sober that isn't AA or detox or rehab, contact me through either YouTube, Everyone is Addicted, Rogers Cable, Everyone is Addicted, Jasmine Bootle on Facebook, and Jasmine Bootle on Instagram, and Bootle Jasmine on TikTok. And that's what I kind of do now, is help people try to find a way of sobriety that fits. And I also try to help people in my community with nonprofit projects. So that's kind of the work that I do now. And if you ever want to do an interview about your own story, that's another way that you can contact me as well. And the documentary is not out yet, they're still filming it, and same with the book. So I don't know exactly when I can promote those yet.
Totally understandable. So, our last question, we always ask the same question to every guest. And the name of our podcast is In the Black. And that references being in a positive place in your life and overcoming the negative situations. So, when you look at your life today, what do you think of when you think of being in the black personally?
Personally, I'm in a situation that is very difficult and it's been a long struggle, and not relapsing is me in the black, and actually taking on more projects and helping more people in my community while I'm struggling on my own, and not using and going to school. Basically, doing the things I'm supposed to be doing no matter how hard life gets is me in the black and not using.
I love that. And what piece of advice would you give someone who is struggling?
For me, if you're struggling and you feel you can't anymore, think about people in this world that have it worse than you do. And I find that tends to stop me because I realize how much I have to be grateful for. And also, if you're struggling, research ways that fit for you, like per se, if you are an alcoholic, but you don't want to completely quit drinking, there's a drug called naltrexone, which is kind of like Suboxone, where it slowly makes you not want to drink, so you don't have to be abstinent at first. The drug itself slowly within your brain rewires it so you don't want it. It's actually FDA approved for 30 years. So I would suggest to people researching things that suit them if they're struggling, because there's so much more out there than what we're told when you go to the doctor. So, yeah, research something that fits you would be my best advice, because I learned a lot.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it
Thank
too.
you for joining us on today's episode of In the Black. I hope today's story left you feeling inspired and reminded of the incredible strength that lies in each of us. Our guest today has taken her toughest challenges and transformed them into something beautiful, reminding us all that even in the darkest moments, there's always a way to find light in the world.
If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe and share In the Black with another woman who could use a little encouragement. Together, we're building a community of passion, purpose, and power. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and remember, your story matters. Your choices change things, and being your most authentic self can and will change the world around you.